Thank you for tuning in to Nonprofits Talk. On this show, we discuss topics related to nonprofit capacity building, specifically in the areas of marketing and fundraising. I'm your host, Terrence Harrington. Tonight, our guest is Dr. Margina Christian. Dr. Margina Christian is an education consultant who has been an adjunct English professor with the City Colleges of Chicago since 1997, where she's taught English. A graduate of Cardinal Ritter College Preparatory High School, the St. Louis native completed a doctorate in adult and continuing education at National Louis University. She is a former senior editor and senior writer for Ebony, the pioneering African-American monthly publication founded in 1945 by late publishing magnate John H. Johnson, founder of Chicago's Johnson Publishing Company. She is also the owner and founder of Doc Mac Write Consulting, which provides professional development, editing, proofreading, and writing services such as related to management, education, and personal development. Welcome to the show, Margina.
Thanks for having me.
All right, tonight we're going to be talking about nonprofits and storytelling. If you have any questions, please feel free to give us a call at area code 312-738-1060. Again, that's 312-738-1060. So, Margina, I have always been fascinated with storytelling. So, Once Upon a Time and all of these other things, I've always been engrossed by how stories, just compel you to either go to another place or it compels you to donate money. It compels you to do a whole lot of different things. So talk to us about how nonprofits can use storytelling to, tell their stories.
Well, first off, great observation, and that stories actually are the most powerful tool, or one of the most powerful tools that nonprofit organizations can actually use, because stories are known to create movements as well as ignite social change.
Wow.
So one thing that I would say, first of all, nonprofits can use storytelling by first, I would say, something called put the cookies on the bottom shelf.
Okay.
And what this means is that you want to have stories that are relatable.
Right.
And something that people can reach. And if you put the cookies on the bottom shelf, that's at a level where everyone can relate to it as well as reach it.
So like low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit, exactly. But you want to have stories. How does this happen? First of all, you want to find something that people have an interest in. So you want to make certain that you have a face, put a face to what it is that you're talking about. And that happens by having people who tell stories that other people can, in some way, it resonates with them. So there's an interest in it. You want to also, stories can be told through nonprofits by the fact that you want to be able to show your those who have an interest in the organization what it is that the organization is doing.
Okay.
And that comes from the people, because the people are actually the backbone in terms of if this is working and how are we able to gauge what it is that we're doing. And it's through those stories. So
how does, we're talking about the staff at nonprofits who may or may not have a background in journalism or things of that nature. How do they go about collecting stories? And I think the focus should be on one thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if they focus in on that one thing, so say, for instance, we have a homeless shelter. And do we choose an individual that's getting service from our homeless shelter, or do we talk about the organization? How would we formulate a story, based on what we do?
Okay, if you have a nonprofit organization and it deals with a homeless shelter, what you need to do is you want to look at those people. So first of all, what is the mission of the organization? Gotcha. And how is it trying to help? Then the people you interview, you talk to them, and you find out how has someone's life been transformed or shaped in some way based upon being able to go to the shelter. How has, you might have a wonderful story of someone who was once homeless who now comes back to volunteer.
Wow.
And those stories are all around. And if you get to the truth, you'll be able to find the story. it's important that you learn to connect the dots.
Right.
Because in connecting the dots, that comes from the truth, and that comes from just talking to people.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When you have someone who's at a homeless shelter, they all have stories.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get here? What happened in your
Mm-hmm.
life? And just from asking those questions, you'll be surprised at what comes forward. But that's putting a face on it, because people want to hear feel-good stories.
Yes.
But in addition to feel-good stories, they also want to have stories that they know will generate some type of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So while feel-good stories of success are great, but also just stories that make people feel something.
Mm-hmm.
It could be anger, it could be joy, it could be something that makes you think. But if you feel something, so be it feel good or just feeling,
Right.
I say do a James Brown. Make them feel something.
Make them feel something.
Feel something.
So speaking of making somebody feel something, now again we're sticking to the point that everybody's not a journalist.
Exactly.
So we're talking about nonprofits, smaller nonprofits that may have a staff of 1 to 3 people. How should we start collecting stories?
Well, it only takes one person to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
So what you could do is, if you have a small staff, find what are some questions that they'd have an interest in. If they were to look at someone, it could be, if we go back to the example with the homeless shelter, you
Right.
might have someone who's in and out, or you might not see that person after a few months. And you might wonder, well, what's going on? Where is the person? Or you might want to you might observe that this person has a talent or a skill, and you're wondering, I recall once writing a story about a group of homeless men, and they formed a choir.
Oh, wow.
Because they were all former singers.
Okay.
And someone took the time to talk to them, and speaking with them, she realized they had beautiful voices. And singing, the power of music is so beautiful and transformative. I say music is God's gift to us.
Yes.
And what these people were able to do was, even through their pain, they were able to realize that they had something beautiful to offer, and it was through song.
Wow.
So because just one person, but once again, find something common. You could, if you have a staff of 3, you could have those people maybe reach out, just go around just talking to people. And when you talk to them, you'd be surprised at what it is that you'll find, what comes out in terms of their backstory and their histories. You'd be really surprised. And from that, those stories generate some incredible bits of information that people can use, and it can be very helpful.
Now, should they be walking around with a tape recorder?
Well, you brought up a great point initially, in that everyone isn't a journalist.
Right.
So, it's the difference. A lot of people can tell a good story, but it really takes a skill to tell a great story.
Right.
And that comes from knowing the right questions. So back to your question at hand. First of all, when you interview someone, you have to always find out, is it okay?
Right.
Because some people aren't comfortable. And if we were walking around talking and I didn't have a tape recorder, you'd be more prone to tell me more.
Yeah.
You'd share more. However, if I came with a tape recorder, you'd probably say, okay, for some reason you'd pull back a bit.
Right.
So to answer that, first of all, you would want to see, is it okay if I speak with you?
Okay.
And is it okay if I record?
Gotcha.
And you have to get permission. And from there, just make the person feel comfortable. Because when someone is comfortable, they'll tell you more.
They'll open
share
up.
more, open up. And these are people, usually with nonprofits, most of these people haven't been interviewed. They don't have those skills. And even on both ends, those who are asking the questions and those who are actually granting the interviews. So you want to have a conversation.
Yes.
And ask, and perhaps you can have a tape recorder, and you want to make sure you have extra batteries, because that has happened where even if you have a brand new set of batteries, that's happened where you'll start to do the interview and realize, okay,
It's not recording.
it's not recording. And that has happened. So you want to always be prepared.
Okay.
But you can also have a pad and pen.
Yeah, old
just
school.
to write down. Yeah, I believe if you know the old school way, then you'll be able to do everything, and that's a great way. And it's not as intimidating as a tape recorder.
Okay.
So just talk and write down questions, and then maybe come back later.
So some of the tools that, we're going to start collecting stories at our organization. Talk to what you do as a journalist, and I know we're not all journalists, but, some of those, the who, what, when, where, and how. Should we include those things in our talk or our story capturing technique?
Yes. Well, first off, I'm a huge stickler on being detailed and precise. And one of the first things I learned is that you always ask a person his or her name, but more importantly, how do you spell your name?
Yes.
A lot of people make assumptions, and it could be a simple name, but people spell their names differently. And you want to not only put a face on it, but make certain that the name is spelled correctly.
Yeah, that is so crucial
that's
right there.
Very basic. So you want to start with the basic questions, the who, what, when, where, and why. But then from there, you want to also have additional questions where you're trying to find out something about the person.
Okay.
So whatever the mission of the organization is, you want to see how might questions related to the organization center around the person and his or her life.
Got you.
So if it's a homeless shelter, for instance, you want to find out from the person how, what happened in your life, what brought you to this place.
Okay.
Do you see? So you want to look at, once again, the mission of the nonprofit, and then you're going to tie in those links, and that's how you figure out some of the questions. And then if you are the journalist, what would you like to know?
Right.
And then what is it that other people would like to know? And for someone who might have once been homeless but is now working and giving back, what made you want to come back? Why do you feel the importance to come back and share and help? And that's because people relate to others. And if you see that somebody was so inspired that my life changed because I came here and got help, and if I can change, and if my life can change, yours can too, because now you have people who are actually seeing someone who directly benefit from something that was provided.
So for lack of a better word, now you have a poster child.
Now you have a poster child, and that's what nonprofits are all about. You want to have people. That's what has made so many, places stand out, because people know the mission, and the mission comes from the people. So the movement is in the message, and the message comes from the people. That's how you generate social change.
Wow.
And that's how you ignite interest. It's storytelling.
Wow. And so, I've been reading, and of course, what we hear in the news a lot, about some of the social unrest and, some of what's happening in society today, and so we start making a movement behind those things. So how do we tie our storytelling into, how do we reuse our stories in like email and things of that nature? So if we're sticking with the homeless shelter,
okay,
how do we get into, making our story reach a larger audience? I guess that's what I'm trying to hit on.
Okay, in terms of social media or just mediums that you could use?
Yeah, mediums that we can use.
Well, there are a lot of, as we know, we are in a society where people want things quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Instant.
I call it a microwave society. And one thing that you can do, social media, we have Facebook. Your organization can have a Facebook page, free, Twitter, tweets.
Yeah. Now you're a big fan of Twitter, right?
Big fan of Twitter. Yes. Actually, the founder is from St. Louis, which is where I'm from. So I'm a huge fan of Twitter. And then, so we have Facebook. There's Twitter, but never underestimate the power of LinkedIn.
Yes.
Because LinkedIn, a lot of organizations, not only are people able to find jobs, but people are also able to connect with others.
Yes.
You're also able to post information, and you'd really be surprised at how much you can accomplish through LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Now, people also like to see images.
Yes.
People are very visual. So you want to also tap into a YouTube, because that's a way that you can actually have people share their stories and follow someone around to see what his or her day is like.
Right.
And that way, it's more than just telling, but you're also sharing as well, visually, as well as through the medium of print.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people don't realize as many things that they do within a day's time.
Right.
And so they're on autopilot.
Right.
And so, but if you have that camera following them around,
Right.
you're actually capturing a day in the life
Exactly.
of that person. You know,
Exactly.
so how, you know, we talked about, you know, the stories that can be put in emails, social media, and things of that nature, and we talked about some of the low and free tools that they can use. But what makes a story powerful?
What makes a story powerful is the fact that you have to make certain that the story has truth. And from that truth, people will be able to feel something. I cannot express that enough. For instance, you mentioned Twitter. I've noticed that when I tweet something from my heart, and it might sound corny, but it isn't anything that's contrived. It's just something that comes to me, and I notice that I'm able to track it through analytics, which allow you to be able to see what messages, what tweets, what is it that people seem to like.
Okay.
And I noticed that the ones where I'm feeling something, those are the ones that people like the most.
Wow.
So you want to make them, once again, you can have a good story, but you can make it great. And that comes from what it is, what kinds of emotions are coming forth based on when a person reads the story about someone. Is it something that they can feel? Is it something that, wow, I know someone like this? Once again, put the cookies on the bottom shelf. You want it to be relatable and someone can grab it.
Now, we were talking earlier, and I don't know if you can share that story that you shared with us earlier.
Okay.
You know, about the organization that you came in contact with, and you were able to actually put them in Ebony magazine.
Right, right. Actually, it was a church, and the organization, I was attracted to what it was that this organization was doing because the pastor of the church at the time, her husband was the pastor, so she co-pastored, but he ended up getting sick and he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And she realized she had a choice to make. She wanted to take care of her husband, and there was no question about it. But she realized that she was having some health challenges. She was a little overweight, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor told her, if you want to help your husband, you have to help yourself first. And that's the one thing that people don't realize. So many people help others that they fail to help themselves. And if you cannot help yourself, you won't be able to help anyone.
Right.
So he told her the first thing she needed to do was to get her diet together, and she needed to start working out. So that's what she started to do, and her congregation saw the change.
Saw the
they
transformation.
Saw that she started losing weight, and they realized, wow, this is working. And she would just share her story that the reason I did this was because I had to take care of myself, to take care of my husband, because not only physically, but mentally it takes a toll on you when you're a caregiver for someone else. So it was mind, body, spirit. So she saw that her congregation really
connected.
They connected with what it was she was doing. So she said, wait a minute, I'm going to pass on this blessing. So like most churches, they would have fried chicken after the service. They changed it from fried chicken to fruit. And they started having more healthier choices. And then she also took it one step further, where they started getting in on the action. They actually started working out with her.
Wow. Now, how did you actually heard about her story?
I actually heard about the story. Actually, it was through her son. And it Christian Deliverance Ministry in St. Louis and CDM. And her son mentioned it because I said, I saw your mom and she's looking wonderful. And he said, yeah, she's lost a lot of weight. And I was like, wow. So he shared the story with me. And when he shared the story, I was like, that's really inspirational.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, there are so many people who are caregivers who, once again, who fail to take care of themselves because they're so committed to taking care of someone else. And I thought, this is a great story. So I wrote a story once about women's workout groups. And of course, most of the women at her church started out heavy. They were heavy, but they also felt the connection and they wanted to work out. Wow. But then the men realized, hey, we want to
we got to live too.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone started doing it. And when I connected with them, it was a very small organization just starting out, didn't quite know what they wanted to do, but now they have 5Ks. And it's something that the community has embraced.
Wow.
And they have a Facebook page, and they're up to like maybe close to 3,000 followers.
But it all started with a story.
All started with the story.
Tell me, what type of details need to go in the story? So you shared the story, and and a lot of people can relate to being a little heavy and taking care of a loved one. Right. So what needs to go into a story?
You want to put the meat in the story.
The meat. Okay.
And the meat in the story is that you want to have facts.
Okay.
Okay. And the facts, with the honesty comes the main ingredient. Because she didn't have to share the story of why she was trying to lose the weight. Most people just tell you, I'm losing weight. And that's it. But when she actually became transparent in that this is the reason I'm doing it. So you want to have truth. You want to have facts in it. You want to find bits of information that show the mission and how the mission has been carried through with the organization.
Right.
And that mission, once again, comes from the people.
Okay.
Because when people see that others have been helped in some way, then this is going to make them want to become a part of it. Yeah. And those stories come from bearing your soul.
Yeah.
You have to not only have a face, but have facts, and you want to make people feel something.
Right, because I always wonder why certain stories resonated with me as opposed to other stories wouldn't, what I'm saying?
And those stories that resonated more with you, what was it about them?
It had, like you said, it was right, that the truth and that transparency that people were just revealing themselves and, just letting it all show on the paper.
Right. Those triggers, feelings, it triggers so many emotions. And if you feel something, then that's how you know you're onto it.
Yeah.
And you want to make certain, like I said, you could tell a good story all day, but a great story is that one you're going to remember.
Yeah.
He could have told me my mom's losing weight and this is why, but he went a step further.
Yeah.
And that is what I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
So share with us some tips, some writing tips, that nonprofits can use. We know, using the pen and paper is probably going to be the best method to capture stories. So what are some tips? When I'm writing the story, I'm knowing that I need to tie it to my mission.
Okay.
So what else should I be doing?
Well, you want to tie it to the mission. One other important thing that I believe is that you want to find out, how do people prefer to be contacted?
Oh, great.
That's a great question, because now there's so many. We have people who want to be text, email, whatever. You want to find out what's the best way to reach you and get all of their information. Make sure that it's correct. Repeat it. Okay. Because chances are you're going to have questions. And with most nonprofits, you have people who aren't journalists.
Yes.
But some of the things that you want to put in or that you want to collect is that you want to make certain that you have the name of the person, the person's age, how to reach the person.
Okay.
Because if we go back to having someone who's homeless, that person probably won't have a contact.
Yeah, that's so true.
So that's something you have to look at. How will I be able to reach you again? Or what's the best way to reach you? So those are questions you have to think about. You want to make sure that you put in your story, you want to be able to connect the dots.
Okay.
So in connecting the dots, that means really asking those questions to be able to find out what it is that you need, and those needs are met based on the mission of the foundation.
Right.
So you want to find out, okay, if this organization is dealing with a homeless shelter, or if it's dealing with a workout group, then you see, well, what is it about this that I will be able to use to help other people in a workout group or other people who are homeless? And you want to find those stories that detail landmarks. So those landmark moments are incredibly important. So if you started out with 2 people in the workout group, but now the workout group has grown to 50, and within that year's time, this many people lost weight, you know, this number, and these collectively, these are the pounds that were lost. That's something that people look at and think, wow, they started with 2, but now we see what it's grown to. And that's something that people look at and show that you have to start somewhere. And when people see that, that's what works.
Wow. Well, it looks like we only have a few more seconds here on the air. I really enjoyed this conversation because, like I said, I love stories, and stories are something that I feel that every nonprofit should incorporate into their day-to-day business, because of the fact that you want to be able to attract more volunteers, you want to attract more donations, so on and so forth. And like I say almost every week on this show, people can't support you if they don't know you exist. So nonprofits, start capturing your stories, and take some of the suggestions that Margina gave us as far as, going back to old school and getting that pen and paper and writing things down. So if you want to find out more information about Margina, please visit our website at www.nonprofitsmatter.org. Again, that's www.nonprofitsmatter.org. Again, Margina, thank you so much for coming on. I told you the time goes so fast.
It went by very quickly, so I hope everyone was able to pull something to help make those stories have more of a powerful, potent punch to them.
Awesome, awesome. All right, thank you for tuning in. Have a good night, everybody.